All right, we got some optimism about Greece today, but it's clear we are still in a very challenged spot economically. And some investors, they're sounding the alarm, saying, you know what? You get all this financial engineering that's happening right now where companies are gobbling up each other in all these M&A, mergers and acquisitions transactions. Then they get all these stock buybacks and all these dividend plays, and none of this is really sustainable. In an exclusive interview, billionaire investor Carl Icahn tells me he believes we are in a bubble and it could be, quote, an extremely dangerous one. Listen to this.
In financial markets, I believe that there really is a bubble brewing, and interest rates now are at a low that in the history of the Federal Reserve, they've never been held down this long, and I don't think anyone will deny that it's uncharted territory. And it could be very, very destructive.
Very destructive. All right. I want to go to another famed investor right now. Marc Faber, publisher of the editor of the Gloom, Boom, and Doom Report, who's joining me with his take on these markets. And Mark, you heard Carl Icahn there saying that this market is basically nuts. The Fed is fueling all of it. He thinks they need to raise rates right now. What are your thoughts? Are we in a bubble?
Well, I think Carl Icahn just said that it could be very destructive. I would say it's not that it could be destructive. It will be destructive. The question is obviously when, because it's not just the Fed that has fueled the bubble. It's the other central banks, the ECB, that has fueled the bubble, mostly in sovereign debt, and bailed out Greece repeatedly. So as they bailed out Greece repeatedly, the problem became bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is the problem of central banking today. They do not solve problems, they postpone problems. And then you have this all suppression of individual risks that then become one day a colossal systemic risk.
Mm-hmm. So that's the concern. We have colossal systemic risk. You're talking about what's going on
today,
in Europe. Yes?
We not only have we had a bubble in NASDAQ stocks, but basic stocks in the year 2000 and mining stocks were all depressed. Today, and then in 2007, we had a housing-related bubble and the credit bubble in the U.S.
Right.
But other markets were not really in a bubble. But today, you look at vintage cars, at stamps, at fine wines, at high-end property.
I know. Everything is astronomical.
Everything is in a bubble.
So everything's in a bubble. You're talking about all the problems there in Europe. What about the problems back here at home? I mean, the Fed has kept rates and by all indications intends to keep rates here at zero for the foreseeable future. Does that feed into this, Mark?
Well, basically, we are 6 years into an economic recovery, and I'm aware that some economists and strategists think that the economic expansion will just continue to go along. But there are huge distortions in the markets where basically financial assets have been going up very substantially, and real wages for the typical household or real household income has been either flat or down. So it's created huge market distortions. And I think eventually this will be resolved by a massive deflation in asset prices.
Well, with that in mind, very quickly, because we're nearly out of time, what would you recommend people buy? I mean, I know you've been a gold bug for a while.
Yeah.
Given your deflationary scenario, I imagine you're still pushing that.
I tell you, it will be very difficult to hide because even bank deposits may not be safe. But relatively inexpensive are gold mining shares, silver mining shares, and physical gold and silver. But you have to hold it physically and preferably outside the U.S.
Outside the U.S.? Why
Yes.
outside the U.S.?
Because in the U.S. and even in Europe and Switzerland, there is a threat that one day when things really will go bad, central bankers will blame the gold holders for the disaster, and they will say we'll have to take the gold away and so forth. This is less likely to happen in Asia.
All right. All right. So we need to fear the government taking our gold from our basements. You're really taking the risk scenario out there.
It happened before. It happened in 1933.
All right. Marc Faber, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Some warning, warning there from Mr. Faber that we are looking at a systemic problem here in these markets. He, of course, is echoing what we've heard from a number of people as of late. Carl Icahn, Bill Gross expressing his concern on these markets. And, of course, Marc Faber there today with us saying that he's very concerned. I do have a program.